we were actually getting IDF'd, indirect fire. So we were getting our base, which was at the Basra Palace complex. We were getting mortared down there, and like all the lights were out, like in the city. And we were trying to figure out where we were getting these people were obviously calling mortars onto us. And we see a group of guys, military age males who were armed, and they were on a rooftop nearby. And I was one of the only snipers in our group.
Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of this week's episode of Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. My guest this week is Kevin Kent, retired U.S. Navy SEAL, 21-year veteran of our military. Kevin, if I failed to say it yesterday, thank you so much for your service, brother.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for everything you've done. We've had a couple of law enforcement guys on our show, and I was a reserve police officer in New Mexico for like 7 years. We used to work with some U.S. Marshals serving some interesting warrants down in Roswell area. No aliens, but doing stuff like that. And when you see our politicians and advocates yelling defund the police and stuff like that, I don't see how anybody can make a rational thought or advocate for that. When you see what law enforcement does on a daily basis, I mean, us as military, we're, for the most part, we're do a year and a half workup, but we're here where it's safe, and then we go downrange for 6 months, and we're obviously hanging it out down there. But I mean, when you look at law enforcement, like, you guys are on the front lines all the time, and you're basically, you don't know if the day you walk out the door is the last time or not, which, it's definitely a thankless endeavor. I'm sure it's the same as the military. You get a few bad apples can ruin the bunch, but
right.
Overall, I got several buddies of mine, SDPD, San Diego sheriffs, even Jamie's at LAPD. There's just, when I look at people that are pushing that defund the police agenda, it's like, no, not defund. How about fund?
There you go.
If you want people to be better at their job, don't cut funds, give them more, hold them to a higher standard, not totally just let them off the hook. I mean, it's like giving a monkey a hand grenade and expecting it to be some precision weapon.
Yeah. Well, those people that are spouting all that, when something happens to them, they're the first people to call the police. They're the first ones to call 911.
Oh, of course.
That's going on this little bit of tangent, which I tend to do when I start talking here on the show. But if you're one of those people, don't call. You hate us. Don't call us out there.
Don't be a hypocrite.
There you go.
Take care of your own.
Are we perfect? No, but when you need help, it's kind of like the people in Congress that don't want to build a wall, but you go to their houses and they've got these massive fences with security and all kinds of security equipment, as well as armed people.
Yeah, or the gun, the lack of gun rights. People are like, well, no, I don't think you guys should have that stuff. And wait a minute, like, dude, your whole personal security detachment here, your executive protection team, they're all loaded to the gills.
Yep.
But you don't want me to have it for my protection.
I know. We can make a whole story out of that. Could we do a whole another episode on that?
For sure.
But what I'd like to get into is you eventually were promoted up to I think it's an E7 Chief Petty Officer. Is that right?
Yep.
And where did that fall in your career in the Navy?
It fell pretty late. I think I was one, and granted, I wasn't, not to say I wasn't hungry for advancement. For me, especially once Iraq started in 2003, I was all in, and I was just, man, I just want to go down range. I want to do the best I can for the guys to the right and left of me. And I wasn't really focusing on career advancement, stuff like that. But I was an E6 for 11 of my 21 years. And, had a few tours, what they call a disassociated tour. Essentially, I was at SEAL Team 5 from 1995 to 2005, and then went to SQT, which is SEAL qualification training as an instructor. So I went there for 2 years. And even while I was in SQT, I volunteered to go downrange with SEAL Team 5. And that was the big crazy firefight that I got into in 06, 07 in that Abu Bali area of Habbaniyah, northern Habbaniyah. But then went back to SEAL Team 5 for 5 more years. Was there, did 2 more platoons or 2 more deployments out there. And then only towards the end of my career, essentially, I think if I'd left like 2 years earlier, I would have picked up chief probably 2 years earlier. And it's mainly because of like how the evals and stuff get written. The way that we deployed, so we deploy as an entire team, and it's on the West Coast, it's SEAL Team 1, then SEAL Team 3, then SEAL Team 5, then SEAL Team 7. And that's how, 3 relieves 1, 5 relieves 3, 7 relieves 5, and then 1 relieves 7. So it's a 2-year cycle. So each one of those teams is deployed for 6 months. So each one of our teams is in a 2-year cycle. And that's the guys to the left and right of you that are deployed together. But the interesting thing about Team 1 and Team 5 is the way our deployment falls when you get back from your deployment. So when you deploy, it's right at the end of like the reporting cycle. So you deploy and you don't really report, because it's every year when you get like an evaluation. Our deployment is the first 6 months of kind of the reporting cycle. So when you get back from that deployment, and you're still kind of in the middle of that 2-year cycle. Well, when you get back from that deployment, that's the very end. And I don't know, I'm kind of speaking in Greek here. I'm sure people can be like, what the hell are you talking about? I guess what I'm trying to say in layman's terms is the way that our teams deploy, you don't really get credit for your deployment until 2 years later. So it's hard to pick up chief in the middle of like you do an eval every year, but you're not going to get a great grade because you haven't deployed yet. So once you deploy and all that stuff, and then you come back. And so one of my deployments, one of the last deployments I did, I was SEAL Team 5 Sailor of the Year. And it was but it was in one of those interesting reporting periods. So when I came back, I didn't pick up chief because I was getting ready to deploy. And it was just one of those weird things. So I wound up picking up chief at 18 years, which there's dudes who pick up chief in like 8 years. But for me, it wasn't one of those things where I was really I'm like, oh, I got to make chief. Because I was deploying downrange. I was doing what I wanted to do. I was basically deploying, going to Iraq and and getting in ticks, which was kind of what I wanted to do. And then once I picked up chief, it's one of those things where it's hard to stick around a team when you're a brand new chief, because they want you to go and do like an instructor job or something like that. And for me, I wanted to just jump into a platoon as a platoon chief. And they were like, yeah, but you just put on chief, even though I'd done 9 deployments. And that was the thing for me that kind of, I don't know, I guess I let my ego kind of get the best of me, because I felt like I had done more than my time of going down range and doing what I needed to be doing, because I'd done 4 of those deployments. I was as a leading petty officer, which is the senior department head in a platoon. So essentially I'm looking at, my ordnance rep or my intel rep or my air rep or any of those guys, communications, and I'm dictating what happens with all of that. And then I would report directly to the platoon chief, who is the senior enlisted in the platoon. And then above him, there's the officer or the officer in charge and the assistant officer in charge. But, I guess by the time I picked up chief, I was at 18, and I knew I had to do high 3. I knew I had to do 3 more years to kind of get that on my retirement. And I wanted to stick around the team because I knew I wasn't going to do many more years past 20. And I wanted to fulfill a platoon chief spot, and it wasn't in the cards for me. They basically were like, hey, you're going to go to 3rd phase and you're going be the weapons chief there and teaching the new guys how to shoot, move, and communicate. And yeah, essentially I was towards the end of my career, and I was like, do I want to re-enlist? and I basically, actually, I tried to re-enlist, which is the real funny thing, and they had messed up my paperwork so bad. And I took this as kind of an omen. I'm like, you know what? I think it's time for me to punch out. And I honestly, I feel like I made the best decision at that point, because when I retired, I was 39 years old, and had essentially, I still have the rest of my life in front of me, but I'd kind of started getting into the Hollywood piece of it. And literally, like, the last 6 months before I retired, I was filming Transformers 4, which was a Michael Bay movie. It was the first Transformers movie that Mark Wahlberg was in. I came out of that, I retired, and then I started doing Hollywood stuff, and it kind of worked out to my advantage. It kind of worked out in that respect. I think if I would have tried to stay in for another minimum, you almost have to stay in for 2 years because of that cycle that you're in. And I don't know that I would have walked right into a platoon chief spot. A lot of times they want you to do an ops chief and then do a platoon chief. And by then I would have, either been timed out or something like that. And definitely we didn't want to do that.
Before we get into that, though, I was looking at some of the awards that you've received, and we'll talk about that towards the end. But you received a Bronze Star with a Combat V on it. And for those of you that don't know, you can get that for meritorious service without the V. But when you get that V, the way I read that, it's a voluntary action of heroism during combat operations that is above and beyond the call of duty. So can you talk about that? Is that something you're comfortable talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole rank thing also has a ability to kind of give you higher awards and stuff like that too, which is kind of interesting, because as an E6, I was put in for the Bronze Star with V 4 times, and I only received it once. And I think some of that was because I was not a chief petty officer.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 3 Navy commendation. Well, I have 7 Navy commendation medals, but 3 of those are with the Combat V, and I have a Navy Achievement Medal. One of those I have 2 Navy Achievement Medals, and one of those is with a Combat V. And so definitely when you see guys in the SEAL community, you look at guys who have those awards, and like you're saying, there's a meritorious component of the Bronze Star, which a lot of times is given out for, say, a senior, like an 05, or somebody that is in charge of like a specific group. For example, we would deploy downrange, and we would have, it's called the SOTF, Special Operations Task Force. And then the farther along in the war we got, you would have multiple SOTFs. So you'd have SOTF West, SOTF North, SOTF East, SOTF blah, blah, blah. And typically is like an 05 is running that, which, so in the Navy is a commander. And typically that was the commander of your SEAL team essentially would step into that role as the SOTF commander. And he's kind of commanding multiple SEAL platoons, plus he's, maybe got a boat detachment, plus he's, a lot of times he's got some green berets underneath him and rangers, stuff like that. So it's not just a SEAL team. It's a little higher than that. And so a lot of times you would see some of these guys would be in that role, and they're overall they're responsible for all these guys' lives. And so you would normally see the CO of a SEAL, the SOTF commander would come out of there with, they call it a slick Bronze Star because it doesn't have a V. And not to say what he was doing wasn't worthy of a V, but it's more meritorious achievement versus heroic, because of you're not getting shot at directly. You're definitely probably still in harm's way. And that goes to say kind of the same thing too with the senior enlisted advisor. So like, whether it be a master chief or a command sergeant major or something like that, a lot of times those guys, they're they're the senior enlisted in charge of that SOTF as well. And so those guys would come out of there a lot of times with a slick Bronze Star, which is really weird because a lot of times you don't want to associate rank with some of those awards.
But the reality.
Yeah, the reality is a lot of times, I mean, we would have guys E4s and E5s that were in firefights and doing crazy amounts of stuff, and their award goes up to the awards board, and they were like, "Oh, he's just an E5. Let's give him a Navy Commendation Medal with a V." And you're like, dude, the only reason this officer in charge is getting a Bronze Star with a V is because he's a lieutenant or something. And yeah, I get it. Most of the time, those guys are responsible for a little bit more. But that's probably another discussion for another day. I mean, I could probably write a novel on awards kind of being given for not necessarily that guys didn't deserve them, but in terms of guys getting awards for battlefield valor and stuff like that. It's sad that rank plays a role in that.
It really is. It really is. But so the one that you got the bronze with the V though, what was the incident?
So that was an incident. Actually, the entire deployment, we were in Basra, Iraq. So we were in the southern part of Iraq, and that wasn't any specific action that I did. It was a bunch of smaller actions. We did multiple combat DAs downrange, so essentially prosecuting targets. Plus, we stood up the detachment down there when we were operating these small boats down there that were essentially like Boston whalers. We had no business down there doing that probably, but we got to a point where that's what we needed to do. So me, personally, I was kind of operating with the Office of Regional Affairs, which is a CIA unit down there. This award encompasses several different things from that time down there, where we were actually getting IDF'd, indirect fire. So we were getting our base, which was at the Basra Palace complex. We were getting mortared. All the lights were out in the city, and we were trying to figure out where we were getting these people were obviously calling mortars onto us. And we see a group of guys, military age males who were armed, and they were on a rooftop nearby. And I was one of the only snipers in our group. So I had an SR-25, a 7.62, basically an AR-10, but I didn't have a KN. I didn't have a night vision thing to go on my scope, and all the lights were out. And essentially I was kind of operating in the blind. And I had one of my spotters was one of the agency guys, one of the contractors. He came up and he's glassing, and he's kind of talking me onto this roof. And I wound up taking a shot, and I hit one of these military age males, and then the guy that was standing beside him jumps off the roof and breaks both of his legs.
Oh,
and so then they bring this guy into the hospital, which was almost right beside our building. And so, of course, as soon as they bring this guy in there, the doctors, they call us like, "Hey, we got a guy down here who's got 2 broken legs. You want to come interrogate him?" And we're like, "Yes." And so we rolled this guy up, and he had a map, and he had a cell phone and all this crazy stuff. And they were the ones that were responsible for all this IDF we were taking, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, they would launch these 240 millimeter rockets, and these things were just leaving friggin' massive craters everywhere. I don't know how they never hit our building, but I mean, the next day you'd go out and drive around the base, and literally you're like, whoa, like, man, I almost lost a wheel. Just craziness. They were shooting them at the Cobb as well, the coalition base, basically Basra International Airport. And they were essentially launching these rockets. I remember at one point we were actually on a helicopter, and we were taxiing down the runway, and they started launching these rockets, and one hit the runway literally right behind where we just gone in this helicopter. Like, I don't know how they missed the helicopter, but I'm glad they did.
Oh yeah.
One of those crazy things, like we were talking yesterday on about like when weird just happened, like driving in a Humvee and all of a sudden, boom, and you look back and you're like, Vic 4, you guys up? And they're like, yeah, we're good. Well, dude, what was that? What was that explosion? They're like, dude, something behind us. We just drove through it. And like IED went off. You're like, well,
wow,
just craziness.
That's when you get out and thank the good man upstairs.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
One thing I want to touch on just before we get away from all your combat experiences is what I refer to as our unsung heroes, and that's our families. So you were married when you were overseas on all these deployments, is that right?
Yeah. So I met my wife. So when I first got in the teams, I lived in an area of San Diego called Pacific Beach, and it's kind of a little party area. When I moved into this area, and it was well, anybody that doesn't know Pacific Beach isn't going to really know what it is, but area Pacific Beach was on Hornblende Street, but right across from me, my wife lived, and I obviously didn't know her before I moved in there. And my roommate was actually trying to hook up with her roommate, and her roommate didn't want anything to do with my roommate. And then it was funny. So me and her started dating, and this was, we kind of started dating a few months before I deployed the first time. And that was my first deployment when I went to Guam, and then we wound up in the Middle East doing some shipboarding ops and stuff. And I didn't really know a whole lot about her or anything. I knew she was a native San Diego girl, and came back from that deployment and literally did 3 more deployments, and we stayed close, and we were, back and forth. We'd break up and then get back together, and break up and get back together. But that ebb and flow lasted until 2001. And I kind of knew like she was the one, and I'd saved up all my per diem to buy an engagement ring, and she kind of hinted to the fact of when I came back from one of my deployments, and this is one of the ARG Bravos that I did up in Okinawa when we were staying at the Kadena Air Base, and she kind of alluded to the fact like, hey, I can't keep doing this, and when I came back from the first deployment and we really started getting close, obviously found out more about her family and stuff, and she's essentially an only child as a result of her brother had joined the Army right out of high school and was at the 82nd Airborne Division, and essentially was killed in a training accident.
Oh.
And so in 94, there was what's called, anybody that has Google, you can Google, it was called the Green Ramp disaster, and it happened at Pope Air Force Base in 94. And they were doing, the 82nd was doing like this mass division-wide parachute operation. And so on the taxiway, or what they call the Green Ramp, they had a bunch of planes lined up that all the paratroopers were getting in. And her brother was a jump master, so he's standing outside of one of the planes, and he's doing the JMPI jump master parachute inspection, and he's doing all the stuff. And they were training a new air traffic controller, and this Air Force kid was in the tower, and whoever was training him decided it was the best time to go take a piss or whatever. Well, there was a C-130 taking off. At the same time, there was an F-16 coming into land, and obviously an F-16 flies a lot faster than a C-130. And so the kid didn't know anything, because he's just, he was in training. Well, he greenlit the plane to land. And so as the C-130 was taking off, this F-16 comes in, it clips the rear fuselage, and some of the tail goes into this green ramp and hits one of the planes, and the plane goes up in a fireball and killed like 30 something guys from the 82nd. And so that was the weirdest thing. So when I first met my wife, pre 9/11, and in general, just it being in the SEAL teams, they want us to have like not necessarily cover stories, but we didn't, we thought we were cooler than we were. So we're like, oh, I'm not telling anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody I'm a Navy SEAL. I want to be mysterious. And so, when we first met, I told her that I went to San Diego State. And she's, oh, so do I. I'm like, oh shit. Oh, what classes are you in? And I was like, yeah, I didn't really get into it until later. A couple weeks later, we went out and I was like, hey, I'm in the Navy. And she's like, oh, that's cool. And then she, starts telling me stories about her brother and stuff. And then my second deployment or my second platoon, I was actually in a platoon with the author Jack Carr. And and we were up in Fort Lewis, Washington, and we're doing this parachute jump, and I actually had an accident on the drop zone. I dislocated my left knee. And so I wound up flying back to San Diego, and without really expounding on what I did in the Navy, like I'm pretty sure the wife kind of knew what I was doing, and her mom was, oh, that's cool. He's in the Navy. At least he's not going to be jumping out of airplanes or doing dangerous like my son did. And then I show up with this parachute accident, my knee's in a brace. And then her mom starts at, hey, what do you do now? And I was like, well, so getting back on track, we got engaged in like 2001, stayed engaged for a year, got married so I think we got engaged around April of 2001. We got married in October of 2002. That was literally like 6 months before the Iraq invasion. So I think I'd done 4 platoons at that point. So the first Iraq deployment, I believe, was like my fourth or fifth. I don't know. I'm not good at math. Yeah, it was kind of weird once I deployed and having somebody that you're married to. I mean, obviously we were close when I deployed those other times, but that was the first real like deploying to a war zone.
Yeah.
And talking to somebody over an Iridium cell phone, satellite phone versus just being able to like just make a regular phone call somewhere. And we've been married now for almost 24 years. So that was 2002. Yeah. So October 6th will be 24 years. I did two deployments to Iraq. And then I was at 10 years at SEAL Team 5, and they were like, hey, you need to go do something else for a little while. It's kind of rare to stay at a team that long. Typically they want you on a rotation around 4 to 5 years. The way they do it now is you essentially do 2 deployments. So that's 4 years. And then sometimes you can get 2 more years out of that if you're in a position to either move up or down in leadership. But yeah, I essentially went to SQT as an instructor, and then found out she was pregnant in like January of 2005, I think, or maybe February, something like that. And and then a little bit after that, my brother got married in May of 2005, and we were gonna be going to Nashville, where he lives. We hadn't had an ultrasound or anything, and so we're like, oh, let's just pay for one of those 4D, 3D, those weird ones where you see the kid's face and everything. And so we
surprised.
Oh man! So we go there, and my wife's laying there, and she was already pretty big at that point, but she's 5 foot nothing. And people were just like, well, your husband's a big guy, and I was like a 9.5 pound baby. I was like 2 feet tall when I was born, and so people were just like, you're probably just having a really big kid. So the lady's doing the ultrasound, and I'm looking up on the screen. And I'm not a doctor, but I definitely understand anatomy. And I'm like, is that 2 heads? And the lady's just all nonchalant. She's like, yeah, you're having twins. My wife was, she's like almost starts hyperventilating, and the lady's, calm down, calm down. Oh, I didn't realize you guys haven't had an ultrasound yet. And so then the lady, literally, she does the thing for another like 30 seconds or something. She's like, I'll be right back. And she just leaves.
Oh,
So now we're sitting there going, what, do we having a two-headed kid? We're
or
like,
is there three in there?
yeah. So we're just, we're kind of freaking out. And I go outside and I go, hey, what's going on? And the lady's like, oh, well, your primary care provider is the one that's supposed to give you this information. I was like, well, dude, the jig is up. Like, we already know. So can you come in and finish this thing? Because the wife is freaking out.
Uh-huh.
And so she comes in, she finishes the ultrasound. Like, they only figured out that one of them was a boy. The other one was hiding his
A mystery.
twig and berries. And and so we go out to Tennessee and tell my parents that we're having twins, and they were like, kind of crazy. But
wow, welcome to parenthood.
yeah, it was awesome. Very very weird. And
you've had a beautiful little girl since then.
yeah, the boys were born in September of 2005, and then we kind of timed it wrong. I would say we were trying. The wife was like, I want a girl, and the boys were, and this was in 2008, before I deployed to Basra. I was like, man, we're gonna wind up with freaking triplets. But basically, as soon as we deployed in like October. Within a few days of me deploying, she was like, hey, it worked. I was like,
surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, which was a whole nother funny thing. I played a trick on my commanding officer while we were downrange. He had just had a kid before, like that summer before our whole team deployed, and he came down to Basra. So I'd been deployed October, November, December, January. I'd been deployed for about four months at that point. He comes down there in January, and he's asking, he said, hey, how's the family doing? How's it? I go, oh, fantastic. I'm like, you found out the wife's pregnant. He goes, oh, that's fantastic. How far along is she? And I'm like, I think she's like 8 weeks or something. And we've been deployed for 4 months. And I see the gears turn in his head, and he's like, off to the side, like counting with his fingers. He's like, did you go home for Christmas? He's like, I go, oh, no. I go, yeah, I guess the sperm can hibernate in there. And he's just like, yeah. He just kind of shakes his head. And yeah, I guess so. Yeah, makes perfect sense. And I was like, you asshole, you were going to sit here and let me think that, and I go, no, 4.5 months or whatever. And he was, oh man, he goes, man, I didn't want to say anything and have you like go postal on your entire platoon down here.
Oh, and now you're wondering why it took you so many years to get that E7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well,
yeah.
And the whole point of asking you that or mentioning your family is just say thank you. We recognize you for your sacrifice as well. And God bless you. You are our unsung heroes.
Oh, absolutely.
Same in law enforcement. You go out and do your thing, and they don't know if you're coming home or not. And but you expect them to take care of the family and all the problems that go along with having a household.
Yeah. I can't say enough good things about my wife. I mean, she's definitely the glue that held our family together, and her mom as well. Because I mean, by having twins, people were always, oh wow, like how was it raising twins? And I'm like, don't ask me, ask my wife, because I felt like it was such a daunting task that I spent every waking moment in Iraq. I felt like going to Iraq was easier than trying to raise two babies at the same time, And going back to when we had our daughter, our boys literally just got out of diapers, and then we have our daughter in May of 2009, and so we got toddlers and a newborn, but it was crazy because we're like, this is only one kid. This is easy. Like we should have had her a year earlier, But yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah. So, okay, now let's talk about Hollywood a little bit. How did this all come about? Did you at some point in your life think, man, I'd like to do something with Hollywood, or what happened?
Actually, it was weird. I never had any. I never really had any aspirations of doing anything like that. And although in high school, my older brother, when I was taking some of these, easy classes or the easiest classes I could find in high school, because I wasn't a big school person and I could really care less. I never really felt like I was challenged in high school, and I feel like maybe if I had taken some harder classes, I probably maybe I would have turned out liking something and actually going to college, and then who knows if I would ever join the military. But my brother was, hey, he goes, you should take like speech and drama and theater. And at first I thought he was joking with me, but he goes, no, man, it's like the easiest way to pick up chicks. And I was like, oh,
Okay.
so I did take some theater stuff in high school,
Uh-huh.
but never thought that it would result in me doing something in Hollywood. So how that started is an interesting story. So the our two boys, because they were twins, my wife Gabby, she essentially she knew somebody whose kids had done some stuff in the film industry, and they're like, oh, they love twins because there's certain laws and the labor laws where kids can only be on set for so many hours, and with identical twins like the Olsen twins and stuff, they play one character, but you get more bang for your buck there. So
Right.
um kind of on a whim, not even thinking like, oh yeah, they're gonna book their first 5 roles, which ultimately is what happened. Like the first thing, they literally just booked all this stuff. It's like one of the first shows they were on was they played the fattest crack babies ever on this TV show called The Shield, which was a cop drama with Michael Chiklis. So they did that, and then when they were about 9 months old, they auditioned for this show on HBO called Big Love, and it was about Mormons. It was Bill Paxton and a bunch of. He was basically had 3 wives, and our son played one of his sons that he had with Jennifer Goodwin, his like third wife or second wife or something. And yeah, the boys did that for 5 seasons, and then they did the last 2 seasons of a show called Weeds with Mary Louise Parker, where they played one of her sons. The son they played Stevie Ray Botwin, the son that she has with the cartel guy. And then they did a bunch of other projects and stuff. And so as a result of me kind of being a, a stage dad or whatever the hell they call them, sitting on sets, what a lot of people probably don't realize is like police or like military, being on set, it's got its own kind of levels of acronyms, and it's got its own like culture and its own language, basically.
Yeah.
So somebody walks up and goes like, hey, go find a PA. And somebody's like, well, what PA? I'm like, well, it's a production assistant. It's not a physician's assistant. It's a production assistant. Or go find the first AD or the second AD or the second, or go to the AD trailer and do blah, 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 blah. So it's a lot of its own separate language. And so as a result of me sitting on some of these film sets and television sets, I kind of learned some of the lingo. And then in like 07 or 08, there's a guy, the guy that mentored me in the industry. His name's Harry Humphreys. He's a really good guy that you should probably have on the show, because he lives in Texas, but he was an old Vietnam SEAL. He was in class 29, and he did one of the first platoons in Vietnam with Dick Marcinko. So him and the guy that created SEAL Team 6 did their first platoon in Vietnam together, and then Harry went back for a second deployment to Vietnam as part of Mac VSOG and the Phoenix program, where he was essentially in charge of these PRUs, provincial. There's some word for it, but basically they had a whole gang of South Vietnamese soldiers at his disposal, and he actually was wounded in combat. Came back from that deployment and, rehabbed and everything, and then punched out of the Navy and, did a bunch of various other stuff since then. But in the early 90s, Jerry Bruckheimer, who is, I don't know, very well known in the film industry, like he's a very well known producer for, things from like Days of Thunder to, those National Treasure with Nick Cage.
Right.
He's done a bunch of Nicolas Cage stuff. He did, Gone in 60 Seconds. But yeah, Bruckheimer's known for tons of high action stuff. He did both of the Top Gun movies, and I worked with him on a movie called 12 Strong, which was about the Green Berets entering the Afghanistan war for the first time, like in late 2001. But Bruckheimer had either bought or owned the rights to the book Rogue Warrior, which was written by Dick Marcinko about the formulation of SEAL Team 6 in the 80s, and they were developing a script or a screenplay for this book, and they'd fly Dick Marcinko from the East Coast out to LA and ask him a couple questions, and then they're like, all right, see you later. And then, so it got to a point where Dick was like, dude, you're literally flying me across the country to ask me some shit. It could probably be either a phone call or an email. And he goes, you know what? I've got a really good friend of mine who probably, he knows as much about this stuff as I do. His name's Harry Humphreys. And at the time, Harry was living in Huntington Beach, which is right down the road in Orange County from LA.
Right.
And so Harry kind of started doing this as a favor to Dick, and he started developing this script. Well, this was all about the same time as when they filmed the movie The Rock. And so Bruckheimer was a producer on The Rock, and this was Michael Bay's second movie that he directed after the first one was Bad Boys. And so all of those SEALs in The Rock were dudes who put me through Bud's training. And so those are all guys that Harry knew. And that was kind of like the MO for what was to come. And what Harry and Michael Bay kind of put together was, he's like, I could hire a bunch of extras or some stuntmen to look the part of these Navy SEALs. Like they, essentially they took real Navy SEALs and they brought those guys in and they played themselves on camera. And so moving forward from that, it is what kind of happened with everything after that. So you have like Transformers 1, Transformers 2, Transformers 3, all these Transformer movies, along with some other films that Michael Bay did. And he had, essentially Harry was in his hip pocket from that moment, from that movie ever since. And so I worked on a movie with Harry. It was called Red, and it was Bruce Willis and John Malkovich.
Yeah.
And same kind of thing. It was like, hey, we want to bring a bunch of guys down here that are going to shoot guns and look the part of soldiers. So we had a whole bunch of us go down there, and that was my first exposure with working with Harry. So we did that, did some reshoots for this film. And then after that, I just kind of stayed close with Harry and his wife, Catherine, just kind of doing more projects. So like Transformers 3 was after that. And then we did Transformers 4. Transformers 4 was right about the time that I was retiring from the Navy. And then we did this other show called, a TV show called The Last Ship. And that happened right about the time that I retired. And Harry essentially brought me under his wing. Was, hey, you're going to run this show, or he's running it, but he's basically teaching me how to be a military advisor. And to what a lot of people don't understand with that is my job on set is essentially looking at the monitors and going, okay, does that look believable or not? I'm not taking an actual actor to the range and trying to turn him into a Navy SEAL. I'm just trying to make these guys look the part, And in addition to that, there's a various amount of other stuff that goes along with that, from, script advising. So looking at the script and reading through it and looking and going, hey, this this doesn't make any sense, or hey, he shouldn't call this guy a sir, or this guy shouldn't be called this, or various other things too, nuances on the script that go into that. But yeah, that was kind of the first exposure I had with Hollywood, and Harry literally mentored me for years. I think the last project we did was in 2019, was the Tomorrow War. And then, COVID happened and all that stuff. And honestly, I feel like Harry was kind of ready to get out of the business. Like, he still does some script advising and stuff like that, but most of the stuff now is kind of pushes my way, and I've kind of moved into the role that he kind of started in this industry. And I definitely would not have this type of job if it wasn't for him. I mean, him and guys like Dale Dye, who did kind of the same kind of thing on Platoon and some other movies. Like, those were the two guys that kind of paved the way in Hollywood as guys who do this full time and
Mm-hmm.
know what to look for type stuff. So
Well, in the movie Peppermint with Jennifer Gardner, I saw on your website one of the trailers. Is that you teaching her how to shoot?
yeah, yeah. So that was a whole nother thing too. She had because she did a show called Alias, and she did a movie, I think it's called The Kingdom or something like that. She played like a special agent or something. So she had some firearms experience. It's like anything else, it's a very perishable skill.
Right.
So whenever they got ready to film this movie, my buddy Keith Willard, who's another great asset, who has taught me a lot of stuff in Hollywood. He's a stunt coordinator and a former SEAL. He's coordinated like the the first Equalizer with Denzel, and he's done a lot of stunt coordinating, and he's got two sons that are in the stunt business as well, Nico and Gino. He was coordinating this, so he brought me in to train her. And as the story goes, she's like just like a housewife type of thing, and her kid and husband basically get killed by cartel guys. So she essentially takes it upon herself to seek vengeance, and so she gets training, and she goes through this whole gamut of stuff. So when it came time to training her, we went to this range, which might look familiar to a lot of people because it's the same range that Keanu Reeves used for all the John Wick stuff. And it's
Terran Tactical.
Yeah, Terran Tactical, Terran Butler's range. And yeah, we literally just went through this whole gamut of starting from scratch and shooting and crawl, walk, run. But she was awesome, and it is so funny because everyone's idea of owning weapons and carrying weapons and stuff like that is all different. I remember having a discussion with her about, I'm like, by the time we get done with this training, you're going to be a life member of the NRA. And she was like, I don't know about that. She goes, I'm kind of a gun control advocate. She goes, I almost feel like nobody should have guns. And she has like a full-time security detail because she's had some weird ass stalkers. And I'm like, seriously? You don't think people like your security detail should own weapons? And she was, oh, no. I generally feel like people like that and you and like people, gone through the military and had vast amounts of training. I definitely feel like all those people should own guns. She goes, I feel like anybody that owns a gun should actually have to go through mandatory training so that they're not, dumbasses with firearms. And I was like, okay, well that makes more sense.
That's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, she's such a sweet girl, and I went to high school and college in West Virginia. So even though I'm from Tennessee, I'd say I'm from West Virginia.
Yeah.
And she's a West Virginia girl, and we don't have a lot of famous people come out of our state, but
yeah,
she seems just like such a nice person. When we saw that, my wife and I saw that movie Peppermint, we thought, wow, she did a really good job as a bad girl.
Yeah. She's very smart too, and just the way that she approached the role and everything. When we were doing that training, I can't remember what year it was, but all of this like Me Too and Harvey Weinstein stuff had just came out, and there was a bunch of misogynistic stuff going around Hollywood, and she had been divorced from her husband for a while about that, but there was something in the news about something that he had done. And I just remember on the day that this particular day we were training, and anybody who knows the handguns and stuff, like we would train on Glocks, and we would also train on SIGs and stuff like that. And so we had this SIG 226, and anybody that knows single action, double action pistols, there's a decocking lever on the side of the SIG. And so when you're transitioning, when your weapon's extended, you typically you decock it and bring your weapon back before you holster. And another thing too, one of the things that why I kind of migrated toward Glock pistols is because of that. And so when I am trying to teach an actor or actress or stuntman or whoever else all this stuff, there's only one trigger pull and there's no ancillary stuff you have to worry about. There's no safeties. There's none of that stuff. So my typical go-to is, hey, just try and keep it as simple as possible. But for this one, there was something specific to where we wanted her learning as many weapon systems as possible. And I just remember one of the things where she goes to bring her weapon back and her weapon was still in single action. The hammer was still cocked. And I go, hey, remember, decock. And she takes her finger was off the trigger already. And she just looks at him. She goes, I know somebody that I would like to decock. And I was like, all
I'm
right.
just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding with you.
About her former husband. And I was like, oh man, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that.
Oh, that's hilarious. Those are good stories to hear. We're starting to run a little bit short of time, and I've got a section I call rapid fire. So let's take a shot at this, and I'll give you a couple things, and you just tell. These are designed to be 1 or 2 word answers, but if you want to expound on any of them, that's fine too.
Okay.
All right. First up, what's your favorite deployment location?
Oh man, I don't know, honestly. I mean, Iraq was great, but it's not a place that I would ever want to return to. Thailand was pretty cool.
All right. Yeah. What about the worst deployment location?
Oh, well, both of those, probably the same answer for those as well. Iraq was fairly shitty. Afghanistan was, the Philippines were actually kind of cool too. Philippines, Thailand, Korea was cool. But yeah, I'd say any place where people are trying to kill you, probably bad places.
That's bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about your favorite weapon system?
Man, I don't know. I've got a Glock 19 that's been tricked out by Terran. That's pretty nice. But I also have a Staccato C2 pistol. Nice. That one of the guys that I've done a protection detail for bought me, and that thing is pretty nice. Yeah. And then, I mean, I like M4s, 15 platforms. I got an AR-10 that's like a tack driver. The thing is so dialed in. Any of those, I'd say an AR platform with a Glock secondary is kind of my jam, I guess.
There you go. The best movie depicting special operations.
I would say one of them that I extremely enjoy is Black Hawk Down, and that was Harry Humphreys did that one. And I also like 13 Hours, even though they're not really special operations, they're contractors. They're all former special operators, and I'm a little closer to that one because I knew Ty Woods and Glenn Doherty, who I served with.
What's the most dangerous animal you've ever encountered? And we're not talking about Toby there with you.
I'd say probably some type of snake. We were doing some jungle stuff in Malaysia, and we were all just walking along. We all stepped over this one thing, and so camouflaged that you don't even look at it. And one of the dudes literally walks by us and whacks this thing with a machete. And he was like, "Yeah, that would have been a bad day because that thing would have killed 3 of you." And we're like, "Oh, shit." Yeah. I don't even remember what kind of snake it was.
The only good snake's a dead snake, in my opinion. One actor or actress who surprised you?
Well, John Krasinski is somebody that I've worked with quite a bit, who's coming from a role like The Office, playing the role he did for that, and then stepping into something like 13 Hours. And he was kind of a natural in terms of weapons handling, and you know, in my job, you come across that. You come across stuff where guys are they're either natural stuff as a result of either playing sports growing up or just not being uncoordinated. Because I've definitely worked with actors before where I'm like, dude, are you chewing gum and trying to walk at the same time? Like, you know, crazy like that.
Yeah. How about diving or parachuting?
Oh, parachuting for sure.
Hollywood or military?
Oh man. Uh I'd say both. I definitely get to go a lot cooler places with Hollywood than I got to go in the military. But yeah, I would say Hollywood for all the amenities, but I'd say military for the experiences.
Got it. Your favorite Liberty post?
I'd say you're talking about favorite spot on Liberty. I will say when we did season 3 or 4 of Jack Ryan, we were filming a lot in Eastern Europe, and I fell in love with Hungary.
Nice.
And I mean Greece was kind of cool, even though I was born in Greece, but we went there and it was kind of dirty. I fell in love with Budapest, which was awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What's the funniest SEAL teammate nickname you've ever heard?
Oh man, there's so many. Um, and this guy was not he was not a teammate of mine, but and this is how funny his nickname was. Uh, Cock Breath Jones.
Okay.
And yeah, and apparently he had really bad breath, and they're like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, but I mean, yeah, I could probably look at a handful of these platoon plaques and just try and figure out some of these other other nicknames. But yeah,
Well, what was your nickname?
I never really had one. It was crazy. I didn't start getting called KK or K2 or K squared until I got into Hollywood, and I think that was a result of we had on the last ship there we had another guy named Kevin that was I think he was either sound department or special effects, and so every time somebody go Kevin, and like I'd be like yeah, and they're like no the other Kevin, or vice versa with him. So
Yeah.
they just started calling me either KK or K2, and then kind of where K squared came from. Like my company was, Kevin Kent. So
Yep. Who is one person that you'd like to have on your podcast, Liberty Risk?
here's one that would be probably a surprise. Kim Jong Un, the leader of North Korea, the leader of North Korea, because I'd like to hear some of these secrets that this dude's got and some of the messed up people he's had killed. But I mean, that would be one. But I definitely feel like somebody that's an extreme liberty risk would be like some rock star, Jimmy Page or anybody from Led Zeppelin, Sammy Hagar. I'm trying to think of some other people that would just have some. I mean, Axl Rose, I'm sure, has some crazy stories of being a liberty risk. But yeah, I would think somebody that's somebody that parties like for a job, which is basically what rock star is.
Here on Game of Crimes, we have military and law enforcement heroes, but I occasionally bring in former bad guys.
Yeah.
So I've talked to my agent about trying to get Jelly Roll on here, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Oh, that would be a good one. I still do security for Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah.
And he's been on the show a couple times when I've been there. Yeah, so when Joe was in LA, I used to work for him in LA, and then he's been in Austin for like 6 years now. But yeah, he's got some amazing he's got some amazing guests that come on the show, and Joe generally is a really, really good guy. Like he's a good guy to work for. That's just super back. Yeah.
Yep.
He's a guy I'd like to have on the show for sure.
What's the worst you can do? Say no, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And one more, 3 words that describe K2 today.
Ooh, 3 words. Man, I would say grown and definitely not mature, but but I would think grown because of how much I think I've even in the 13 years since I've been out of the military, I'm like, man, I don't even know if I have 3, honestly.
How about successful?
Yeah. Well, even that is weird because I still feel like I'm I'm striving. I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, but I'm still, it's like one of those things where I'm like, man, it'd be nice to be able to do A, B, C, and D and, but yeah, I guess successful is a good one.
Yeah. And I would say dad.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even content or happy. I mean,
Excellent.
definitely yeah, one of my sons goes to San Jose State, and it's one of those weird things. And it's something that I look back on too, because what a lot of people don't realize is you're only with your mom and dad for a short amount of time. And
Mhm.
especially like in my case, whereas I joined the military and I didn't get back to Tennessee a lot to hang out with my family. And so it's one of those things where, like, when you raise a son or a daughter, and like one of my sons is in San Jose, and then when he comes home, it literally feels like a piece of your soul is back.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's weird in that respect. I'm sure it's the same way with with your kids. I don't know if your kids are still close to you in the co-located or if they're spread out everywhere, but
Spread out.
yeah, yeah.
2 in
That's
Atlanta and 1 in Washington.
wow.
So just a couple more questions here, and man, I can't thank you enough for your time here, but
Yeah, this has been awesome.
it's been a good time. What part of your life are you most proud of that has nothing to do with the military?
Oh man. I would say probably raising, having a family that's stuck together and, having kids. I mean, it's one of those things like when you're all the time, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn by any stretch of the imagination, because like I said, I feel like my wife did the majority of the heavy lifting. But I remember we would go to restaurants and stuff with our 3 kids, and we'd have people come up to us like, "Wow, your kids are so well behaved,"
Yeah.
and I would always be like, "Yeah, we beat them a lot," and like that. And but I think that's probably the proudest that I am, is the fact that my kids are productive members of society, even though my boys are 20. They turn 21 this year. My daughter's 17, but they got good heads on their shoulders. I don't ever feel like, they're doing shady, I,
Right.
they'll walk out the door and I'll be like, "Hey, be good, make good decisions," stuff like that. But I don't ever, I don't ever sit back and worry that they're doing dumb shit I did.
Well, and I tell you what, I think for that question, that's the best answer you could have ever come up with, because that just shows where your priorities are, and that's where, in Murph's opinion, that's where they should be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So in 20 years from now, when people hear the name Kevin Kent associated with former Navy SEAL, former Hollywood, all the things you've done in Hollywood, your podcast, your executive protection business, what is it you hope they remember about you?
um, I don't know. I mean, I honestly, I want people to look at me, or look back as somebody who's. I think I'm always going to be looked at as somebody who's a humorous person, as somebody that was fair, somebody that was patriotic, cares about the country, things like that. Yeah, I don't. I mean, honestly, yeah, I I can't imagine. I can't imagine being like some famous person that's going through life constantly worrying about what other people think. So in that respect, I don't. Yeah, I'm like really like I don't really give a shit what they think of me. But honestly, I would think that in 20 years, if somebody looked back at me like, yeah, man, that dude, he was a good guy or he was a funny guy. And I mean, I think it's kind of the same thing. Like when you're in the SEAL teams, you want to be known as somebody who's a good dude, like, yeah, he's a good SEAL, he's a great guy. And it's somebody that you would always want on your team, is somebody that you others would want to work with, regardless of the task.
Yeah. You mentioned a guy, a teammate earlier, Jack Carr. He was a guest on the show here back in May.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, when his latest book came out. What a gentleman.
He's such a good guy. Yeah, and he's man, he's traveling all over the place. But he's a guy that we want to have on the Liberty Risk for sure.
He's a good interview. He's extremely intelligent.
He's such a smart guy. I mean, we're the same age, and I remember when he came in the teams, he was probably only a few years behind me because he was a new guy in like my second platoon. So, I mean, honestly, he was probably only 4 or 5 classes behind me. But yeah, he was already pretty sure he already had a college degree when he came in, and yeah, he's a very smart guy and a very humble for all the
Yes,
stuff that he's done. I mean, he's written multiple books that are just, I mean, amazing reads. And he's such a good guy. He's very, very humble in all the things that he's accomplished, and he's still driven to keep doing more.
he is. All right. So one more question and then we'll finish this thing up. Any words of wisdom or advice for anybody that's considering a career in the military or law enforcement, a high risk occupation?
I mean, do it. I would never I would never discourage anyone from going into the military. Like, it definitely shaped, molded me who I am as an individual. I could only speak to a little bit of law enforcement, and I don't even really consider myself police officer because I did it kind of way different than anybody else was. Like, we were just kind of a ragtag bunch of guys that were carrying warrants. I never went to a police academy or any of that stuff, and we were honestly, I don't know, probably breaking the law. But
Nah,
yeah,
you're covered. You're covered.
yeah, no, we were covered in terms of like DOJ and stuff like that. But it was just weird. But um, I definitely wouldn't discourage anyone from joining any kind of law enforcement. I just I would think going into it, just look at it for what it is, and it's a thankless endeavor, and it's one of those things. It's just a few bad apples are going to ruin the batch, but
Yep.
I don't think you can go into a job and worry about everybody else's perception. I would say do what you feel is the right thing to do, and yeah, I don't think you can really sit and worry about what ifs. But I would definitely, yeah, I would definitely wouldn't discourage anybody from going into law enforcement or military, any of that. Like, I had a blast in the military.
All right. Well, brother, thank you so much. If you guys want to find out more about Mr. Kevin Kent here, the podcast again that he's a co-host, is Liberty Risk Podcast. On YouTube, you can find him at Liberty Risk Podcast. On Instagram, you can find him at The Real Kevin Kent, and there's a story there, but we'll talk about that another time. You can also find Liberty Risk and The Real K Squared on Instagram. And for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you're seeing the screen with all this on it. If you're listening to this, go check out YouTube. On Facebook, it's Kevin. TikTok is Liberty Risk. On X, Real Kevin Kent. LinkedIn is Kevin Kent. And his website, you got to check this website out. It's k-squared.cc, or you can type in therealkevinkent.com. It's one of the best websites I've seen. I've got it pulled up right now. I'm looking at it. That picture of you.
I need to update. I need to put some recent. I think the last stuff I got in there is from Jack Ryan, the 4th season of Jack Ryan. But I need to update that. I've definitely got some videos and stuff that I've shot since then that I need to put on there.
I printed out your resume here. And the film credits and TV credits and your biography is just, it's wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
And the cool thing is you can click on trailers, and like the one with Jennifer Gardner, I watched her out the range. I thought that was really cool to see on there, but
Yeah. Yeah. There's some good stuff, some good behind the scenes stuff on there.
really is. So, man, thank you so much, Kevin, for coming on the show. And Jamie McBride, thank you so much, brother, for the introduction here and the recommendation. It's always an honor to bring on one of our veterans, one of our heroes, someone that has been out there and risked their life repeatedly to protect you and me. I didn't call Kevin a hero, and I'm not going to ask him if he is a hero because I'm pretty sure he'd say no, he's not. But as you folks know, in my opinion, that's part of what makes a hero to start with.
I definitely served with some heroes. Thank you for everything you've done as well. Thanks for having me on. This has been awesome.
Oh, brother, thank you again. And listeners, thank you, folks, for continuing to come back every week and supporting the show here. We're in our 6th year now in Game of Crimes. None of this would have worked without your support, continued support. If you're listening to this and you haven't checked us out on YouTube yet, do me a favor, go over to YouTube in the search bar, type in Game of Crimes Podcast, hit the subscribe button, watch some of the episodes, check out Kevin here. Looks like he's been growing his beard for a couple days here, so you want to see what that looks like. And if you see some episodes, you hit that like button on there. Send your comments in. Anyway, let's finish this thing up. You know, I love the fact that you guys come back every week because you enjoy playing the biggest, the baddest, the most dangerous game of all, and that's our Game of Crimes. Until next week, God bless. Stay safe out there. We'll see you then.